Hi guys, welcome back to Sacred Vedic Astrology. My name is Samantha and I am so blessed, so lucky, and absolutely so grateful to be a professional Vedic sidereal astrologer. So, if you guys are new to my channel, we are only doing Vedic sidereal astrology over here. All right, I've prefaced this in other videos, but a lot of people come to, Vedic astrology content and expect it to be the same as Western astrology, but it's a completely different system of astrology. Vedic astrology is using sidereal calculations, which is actually, the correct calculations of where the stars are currently at in the sky. Vedic astrology is the most ancient form of astrology we do have, and it is coming from and stemming from India, where they are greatly respectful of astrology in the Eastern culture. And as someone who has always been really obsessed and had so much love for Eastern philosophy and Eastern culture, Vedic astrology to me is just something that is so sacred and so divine. I always tell people that when I open my Vedic astrology application, I feel like I'm like opening this direct line to God, which might sound dramatic, but hey, I have a Venus-Mars conjunction. I am dramatic. But truly, to me, Vedic astrology is something that is this divine guidance. It's a divine science, right? It's also called Jyotisha, or the divine science of light. So what Vedic astrology is essentially doing is putting light onto the darker or more unknown aspects of life and shining some sort of knowledge and understanding onto it. All right. So I am someone who has the utmost respect for Vedic astrology, and I really like to, use astrology in a way that's helpful and useful and can help other people unravel energy and their karma and their dharma and their purpose. And it's honestly changed my life. I think I'll do a in-depth video more on how Vedic astrology really changed my whole understanding of life and cycles and seasons and all of that really interesting stuff. So today we are going to get into some current planetary energy that is definitely going to be affecting us all collectively. So we are having this Saturn-Venus conjunction right now as we are speaking today on January 16th. We're going to see Venus very closely and tightly in conjunction with Saturn. And then we're going to have Venus go retrograde in March as well, too. So the general consensus, the general theme of all of this energy over the next couple months, January going into February, going into March, is going to be a huge revisiting and rewiring and, I would say rebranding, changing our connection to how we view relationships, how we view financial security, how we view beauty, how we view aesthetics, all things that connect to Venus. I am going to pull up a Vedic prashna or daily chart to show you guys, so you can follow along with some visuals. I feel like I personally like to see visual imagery when I'm listening to someone discuss something. I like to be able to follow along, so I want to give that to you guys as well too. I just want to preface this by saying we are in a time period where a lot of relationships are going to be tested. We're going to see a lot of divorces, a lot of breakups in the media. I've already been seeing a lot of that, and I was talking to my friend about it. And I was like, what is the astrology behind this? And then I pulled up my Parashar's light and I was like, oh, Saturn's about to conjunct Venus. Venus is about to go retrograde, baby. Like, best believe it. So I am going to go ahead and pull up the prashna or daily chart so you guys can follow along and just kind of understand how we do Vedic daily chart analysis as well too. All right, so without further ado, I am going to go ahead and pull up the daily Vedic chart for January 16th, and you guys can follow along, and we'll get right into it. All right, guys, so here we have the daily chart pulled up for January 16th is when I am recording this. Okay, so let's go over to Saturn right here, which is sitting in Aquarius and is actually going to transition out of Aquarius and into Pisces very soon as well too. So everyone should kind of be tracking in their individualistic Vedic charts where Pisces is activating, because we are going to have Saturn go into Pisces very soon, and that's going to change, everyone's energy in terms of where Saturn is causing some restrictions, some delays, some karmic lessons. So you really want to track that as well too. But right now we still have Saturn sitting in Aquarius, and see how it's in that really tight degree conjunction with Venus. Venus is 20 degrees Aquarius. Saturn is 21 degrees Aquarius. So they're in that tight orb degree of conjunction. And in Vedic astrology, we see a conjunction as just when two planets are in the same sign. But best believe that when they get closer in orb degree conjunction, the energy gets more potent and more strong. So because it's really tight in that conjunction right now, we're really feeling that energy today. So Saturn in Aquarius conjunct Venus. What is the energy of Saturn? Saturn is restrictions. Saturn is hard work. Saturn is karma. Saturn is discipline. Saturn is structure. Saturn is order. Okay. And then we see it coming together with Venus. So then we're going to take the energy of Venus and want to understand, well, what does Venus represent? What is Venus the Karaka or the indication of, right? Karaka in Vedic astrology, it means indication of. Okay, so every planet is a Karaka for something. Saturn is the Karaka for order, structure, discipline. Again, I want to emphasize that energy. Venus is the Karaka or the indicator of love, romance, beauty, harmony, money, financial security. Venus can also rule education, which is something that maybe we don't hear about so much in mainstream Western astrology, but I've seen Venus rule education many, many times. So when Saturn is bringing all of its energy with Venus, it's bringing that energy of Saturn with Venus, Venus with Saturn. So it means that all areas of Venus get this more harsh, realistic lens to it, right? So for example, if we see people in relationships where we don't, maybe there's not really this more realistic, practical energy to it, we can watch those relationships start to unravel. Delusions can start to be stripped away. You'll find that when Saturn comes together with planets, a lot of the delusional aspects of that energy start to get stripped away so we can see things more clearly, more realistically, right? Saturn is very realistic, it's very practical. And Saturn is actually pretty strong, in Aquarius. So it's a well-placed Saturn, meaning that we do get a lot of that practical, pragmatic energy of Saturn with Venus. So for example, if you're in some sort of relationship and you don't feel like the agreements or, the ideas that you agreed upon are being met, if needs aren't being met, we'll see a lot of those relationships built on a more faulty foundation start to unravel and start to get very tested, okay? If financial security isn't built on a solid foundation and Saturn is coming together with Venus, we can start to see themes of that unravel, like what in our life hasn't been stable, what hasn't been set on a solid foundation. That's where Saturn comes in to question themes of Venus, right? The aspect I do like about this Saturn-Venus conjunction is the feeling of getting more practical and more serious around those themes. Because the thing about Saturn is harsh life lessons that will reward us in the long run, right? So for example, if you're going through Sati Sati, Saturn over your natal moon, if you learn those harsh lessons and you learn to take accountability for your life and you learn to step up and you learn to be responsible, etc., by the end of Sati Sati, you can be very rewarded financially, physically rewarded, business success, things like that. So then when Saturn comes over Venus and we do hard work around finances, around money, around creativity, around love, around relationships, and we bring this more serious, pragmatic energy towards it, we can get rewarded, right? Saturn isn't here to punish us. That's not, yes, there's aspects where it can feel like that when you're going through a lot of Saturn transits. But what Saturn is actually showing us is what is not built on a strong foundation. what is not actually going to work in the physical existence of reality. If you're someone who's not very Saturn dominant, which I'm not very Saturn dominant, Lord knows, and then you go through Saturn transits, it can feel like this like really shocking wake-up call to reality, right? So Saturn is going to bring that energy of a more, logistical, pragmatic wake-up call around themes of Venus because of that conjunction. All right. So we're going to get more serious. We're going to get more pragmatic. We're going to get more grounded. We're going to get more logical around love, relationships, contracts, beauty, art, creativity. Something I do like about Saturn Venus is if we put in, hard work towards those themes of Venus, we can absolutely see some great success come from it. So if there's some sort of creative project that we haven't necessarily like put in the work towards, this can be a great time to do it. If there's been some sort of relationship that we feel like we need to redefine contracts or agreements or, some sort of foundation that's been built upon, now is a great time to do that. Okay. But if Saturn is not really liking the energy that's coming with Venus, meaning if it feels too whimsical and too flighty and too ungrounded and too illogical, those things can also very much fade away at this time as well too. All right. And it's not just the Saturn-Venus conjunction that's happening right now. It's also that we are going to start going into the energy of Venus retrograde as well, too. So we come into this like Saturn-Venus conjunction, which is already questioning our relationships, our connections, our money, our financial security. And then we have Venus, the karaka of all of those things, then going retrograde not so long after as well, too. Okay. So I'm going to actually now edit this to just pull up a chart for about, let's do like March 17 to look at the Venus retrograde energy. Okay, so first we have that Saturn, Venus, and now around March, we are going to have Venus retrograde with a stellium of planets in Pisces. Lord knows March is going to be a crazy time period, I'll tell you that much. And Venus is going to be in its natural placement where it's exalted in Pisces. So Venus is going to be strong, and it's going to be retrograde, and it's going to be conjunct Mercury, debilitated in Pisces retrograde, and we're going to have the sun there, and we're going to have Rahu there. So do you guys see how crazy this energy is going to be in March? Like, you really want to see where you have Pisces, Virgo placements, because those houses are going to be very active and very lit up. So then we get Venus retrograde with a stellium of planets with Rahu, which, by the way, Rahu is already that karmic access point. So when we get to this time period of March, the way that I'm seeing this astrologically is January to February, we're already reevaluating relationships, money, finances, beauty, harmony, artistic endeavors. And then we come into March where it's going to be a huge culmination of what was not working in January. And we're going to really, really see the potency of that come about. So in this March time period, because we have Venus retrograde, Mercury debilitated, retrograde, oh my God. Oh my God. And then we have Sun with Rahu. We have the nodal axis also tied up with this. Like, that is absolutely out of pocket. We're going to see in this March time period that a culmination of really karmic experiences is going to come in a very potent and intense way. So we can see a lot of arguing in relationships in that March time period. We can see major endings of karmic cycles in love, major revelations, realizations around karmic cycles. We can have people from the past coming back to work through some sort of karma. We can have past financial issues come back to be worked through. So, this is going to be a really wild time period of March. Absolutely insane. I don't even, looking at this, I'm like, oh God, who even knows what's going to come? But it's interesting, right? Because we're going to have Venus exalted, and then we're going to have Mercury debilitated in Pisces, and they're both going to be retrograde in a tight conjunction. So it's going to be a lot of very interesting, chaotic energy when it comes to communication and relationships. So, as we're coming into this January, going into March time period, it's really going to be a time of endings and revelations and karmic experiences in relationships. So we can either end old relationships and come to a sort of karmic close to those, or we can even find ourselves getting entangled up and wrapped up in new karmic relationships when we come into March, where there's a lot of lessons there as well too. So I would just say, with all that energy in March and Pisces, which can be this very delusional energy, as we're now in this like Saturn Venus conjunction, before we get there in March, trying to be practical and pragmatic around Venus themes: money, finances, love, relationships, beauty, harmony. And so when we come into this March time period, I would also say to be cautious of doing any sort of big changes to our looks or our aesthetics because of that Venus retrograde. With all these planets tied up with the nodes, Rahu can be deceit, Rahu can be illusions, Rahu can be trickery. Neptune is there, Neptune is illusions, Neptune is elusive. So we want to be careful of any major financial decisions in March. And we want to be careful of any major relationship decisions in March if there might be an undertone of deceit around them. It's not a time you want to go get some big procedure done, like some big cosmetic procedure done. Absolutely not. It's not a time you want to, do some crazy hair color change when we come into this March time period. Like, absolutely not. But it is a time when we can have this huge karmic unraveling around our relationships, around communication, around beauty, around aesthetics, around artistic endeavors, around financial security. We're going to see big karmic themes unraveling in these next couple months. All right. So don't be surprised when we see major relationships breaking up over these next couple months. Don't be surprised when, people are coming out in the media, celebrities talking about their relationship dynamics not being what it, seemed to be. Don't be surprised when people come out and discuss financial issues. But also, here's the other thing as well too, guys. With Saturn, Venus, and all this energy moving into that Venus retrograde tied up with the nodes, its highs and its lows and its extremes. So some people can actually be going into a time period where they're having financial abundance because it's in their karma, right? The nodes is that karmic access point. But then other people are going through some sort of experience of losing a lot of money, losing investments, things of that nature as well too. All right, so this March time period is going to be absolutely insane. There's going to be so much intensity, so many karmic experiences unfolding around relationships, around connections, around money, around financial security, and it's going to feel very potent and very intense as well too. Okay. So let's say it like this: January going into March, testing of relationships, testing of agreements, testing of contracts, double check everything as we're coming into March specifically. Don't just sign some crazy contract. Don't go change your hair color to some crazy color in March with all this energy retrograde in Pisces. We also want to really look out for deceits and delusions and illusions in relationships over these next couple months as well too. We are going to see a lot of divorces, a lot of endings, but also when it comes to so much karma, so much nodal access energy tied up with Venus, people can also be entering very karmic relationships where there's a lot of lessons to learn, a lot of karma to clear, things of that nature. Okay. It's definitely not going to be a boring time period in March, okay? Might not be the most stabilizing energy, but it's not going to be boring. We're going to see a lot of really intense, life-changing experiences come about in a lot of people's lives. All right. But what we really want to focus on for this January time period is getting more serious, getting more pragmatic, and getting more logical and viewing things more clearly around relationships, around agreements, around financial security as well too. We want to get more serious and more Saturn-like around those themes. All right. We can also find with this Saturn-Venus energy that people might come across like they're not giving us that like emotional fulfillment that maybe we want at this time, because Saturn can be that disciplined energy. So maybe we're not feeling in our relationships the most warmth when in a Saturn-Venus conjunction as well too. So that might be a theme that is coming up as well too. But the thing I do like about the Saturn-Venus conjunction is we are going to see things very clearly, and we're going to have things stripped away that were delusional or not built on a strong foundation thus far. All right. Saturn likes hard work. Saturn likes structure. Saturn likes order. So, for example, it's a great time to get your finances in order, put things into different accounts, like make sure you have a savings that's being built up. But we do want to watch out for investments as we're coming into that March time period, because so much of that Venus retrograde tied up with debilitated Mercury, with the Rahu Ketu axis point. I personally would not make any major financial decisions in the March time period. So watch out for that kind of energy as we're coming into March as well too. Not a time to make some crazy big investment. It's a time to really review and revise things financially and be pragmatic and be logical and be grounded, okay? And again, we've already been seeing this in the media, but we're going to keep seeing endings of relationships, divorces, etc. All right. Okay. I hope this brought you guys some understanding of the current planetary energy and what is going on through the lens of Vedic astrology, or Jyotisha, which is truly a divine science that will help us work with energy and understand energy and really be able to surrender to the sort of divine plan or unfolding that is going on that is bigger than us. Okay? All right. Comment, like, and subscribe for more content coming soon. I'm sending all the love, and we will talk soon. Bye, guys.